Welcome back to the party, everybody. I'm your host, Lech, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How's everybody doing tonight? Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I go live whenever I feel like it, so just hit that subscribe and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party again. Let's also say thank you to my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. Welcome to the party. So I'm sure you guys know that over the weekend, there was a big summit held by the Blaze that Tucker Carlson hosted and was talking to, aside from Trump, all of the Republican candidates. And so I definitely think you should go check out, everything there. There's a lot of good stuff. I didn't watch all of it. But I'm definitely going to. But specifically, what interested me was Ron DeSantis. And, before he announced his presidency or his campaign, before he announced that he was running, I probably would have bet money that even this early on, that he would have gotten my vote. But that launch was just not it. Then there's deep fakes in his videos. There's weak ass commercials with cringy music, all that stuff. And so this summit, this is really make or break in my mind as to whether I'm even going to be taking Ron DeSantis seriously going forward. Shout out to Daniel Cabrera. Welcome to the building. Welcome to the party. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, look, when I heard a Florida resident was going to be moderating this, I wasn't going to turn it down.
And everyone brags on
Tucker, just for the record, Tucker cannot hack the Florida summer, so he is not there over the summer, but in the cooler months he's there, and I think you enjoy it.
The Florida summer is the penance you pay for February. But I love it. So congratulations on everything you've been doing. You signed a ban on abortion after 6 weeks in Florida. Would you do the same as president nationally?
Well, I'm very proud to say Kim Reynolds is here, and she signed a great heartbeat bill today. We were able to do that in Florida. We had a lot of opposition to that. I'm proud to have been a pro-life governor, and I will be a pro-life president. So, of course, I want to sign pro-life legislation.
I want to. That doesn't mean you are going to. Shout out to Clue. Welcome to the party. We also got Melted Mind Media in the building. Welcome to the party. Another awesome YouTuber. Definitely go check him out. Just dropped the link to his channel. How are you doing, guys? Are you guys with me? Is this make or break, or are you giving DeSantis a little bit more room? Because for me, if he doesn't do well here, it doesn't mean that he can't come back and change my mind again. But if he doesn't do well here, then I'm writing him off until he gives me a reason not to.
I think it's something that we need to develop a culture of life in this country. If you look over the last 50 years, we allowed practices that were barbaric. Post-birth abortion. Abortion when you have a fully formed baby 6-7 months in. And I don't think Rome's built in a day. I think it's going to take time to make progress in some parts of the country. But as president, I will be somebody who will use the bully pulpit to support governors like Kim Reynolds when she's got a bill, other states as they advance the cause of life. It is a critical issue, and it's one I'm happy to have done. And oh, by the way, this is an issue where I had a lot of supporters who were averse to me on this. Donors saying they didn't want to support me if I stood for life. It's been written about how I lost a lot of really big supporters. Some of them just aren't pro-life. Some of them think it's a political liability. And at the end of the day, you get into office to be able to do what's right. And you've got to stand on principle. And you've got to say, why am I here? If you're here to contort yourself into a pretzel, to try to not have to take on big issues, to take the political road that's easier traveled, then you're not somebody that's dependable. So we stood up. We did what was right. Yeah, we lost some support as a result of that. But if I had a chance to do it again, I'd do it every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
All right, I mean, a decent political answer, but that's the easy version of that question. Will you be pro-life? And in reality, we have to deal with the fact that half of the country, if not more, doesn't want the procedure to be completely illegal. More than half of the country doesn't want it to be completely illegal. So the fact is that you could say, yeah, I'm going in the bully pulpit and we're going to do what's right. We all agree here that procedure is not what is right, that allowing that is not right. But that doesn't mean that because you say that, you're going to be able to get that done. So I know we just started, but I'm already looking at where he is being a politician and where he's actually saying things that I can hold on to.
So can you, so what you're saying is people need to be brought over to that. I mean, you have to govern by consensus. In a democracy, you have to convince people. So can you just give us your quick pitch? You're speaking to someone of goodwill and good faith, a decent person who has a different position from you on abortion. How do you bring them to your position?
And that's exactly what I was just saying, is that half of the people don't agree with that. So it's easy to pander to the people who already want that. But how do you go the other way? Multiple Media said, I've lost a lot of trust in DeSantis. And Daniel's asking why. I know, at least for me, the fact that he would, politicians lying has always been a thing. But in the same way that originally I didn't like Trump because the degree that he changed what is normal in politics, obviously I was misguided at the time, but regardless, I didn't like that he was stepping over the line. This is how we normally do things, and now you're doing something else. And so when he put out these AI art images with real life Trump of him hugging Fauci, that was a big thing that I didn't like. And so even if he had put out the video of Trump saying that he would let Caitlyn Jenner use the bathroom in Trump Tower, even if he had put that video out first, I'm like, all right, this is basic politician stuff, kind of weak, kind of BS, because we know that's not the type of issues that Trump was talking about. But again, it's just a lot of surface level stuff. So I mean, and I trust Tucker. So let's get into it. Let's get with the hard stuff.
What do you say?
Well, look, I think that one of the most impactful moments of my life was with my better half right over there. The first child we had very early in the pregnancy. We're going in, getting an ultrasound, and I hear this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I'm like, what is that? That's your daughter's heartbeat. Wow. That changed me. I mean, I was pro-life at the time, but that really had.
Why would you even undercut the story by saying that?
An impact on me. And with science and technology, I think we have brought more people over. But at the end of the day, to do what Governor Reynolds just signed, or what we did in Florida, a baby that has a detectable heartbeat, that is a life. And we're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when everybody's given a chance. And so we should stand for life.
Amen.
I mean, again, I agree, but that's not going to convince anyone who's pro-abortion of anything. Mother My Media said the AI was really bad. It could have been a funny AI image that was a cartoon style. We would have been fine. Exactly.
So I don't know if this is like too parochial to bring up here, but all of America is just moving to Florida, so this is like an issue. We've reduced all environmental concerns to climate, but there's still an actual environment, and Florida has a red tide problem that seems to be getting worse, and then there's some indication that it's hurting people neurologically, and it seems like kind of a disaster. What can be done about that?
Well, we've actually created an infrastructure in Florida, and I think it's a good thing, because like the Democrats and the left, they talk about global warming, they're going to change the climate. Them forcing you an electrical vehicle is not going to change the climate when China is building a new coal plant every week. I mean, so just give me the break. This is trying to control your behavior. It's social engineering, and it's not something that's going to work. So what I've said in Florida is, okay, Democrats do that. I'm actually going to focus on the environment that Floridians like and enjoy, and that makes our state unique. So we tackled both blue-green algae, Everglades restoration, and red tide. We've created infrastructures and task force. We have money that will go in to do. So there's a.
I gotta be honest. I'm already kind of just tuning out. And when you know that your biggest opponent is Trump, you can't be, well, we did the biggest things, and I'll tell you what, we in Florida are going to make Florida exactly like the rest of the country because we're so good in Florida and everybody loves Florida. This isn't it, bro.
A lot of experiments being done on red tide right now with the program we put in, but you have to make.
What is red tide? I don't even know what that is. You're not in Florida. Well, I mean, technically you're in Florida, but you're not talking to Floridians. I don't know what red tide means.
Make a decision. Maybe it works in a lab, but if you do it out in the Gulf of Mexico, is it going to have any other cascading effects? So that's what they're studying right now. We think that there's some things that are going to be very good. Now, red tide is natural. I think most people know that. It's been detected going back into the 1800s. But what can we do to mitigate it, and what can we do to prevent?
Again, I still don't know what he's, like, literally don't know what he's talking about, and I don't even remember the question. As far as I remember, the question was, how are you going to get people to the other side? Or no, that was the last question, but exactly the point. Dan said, word salad, all that. He has a hell of a lot of nothing, but word salad that she has hell of a lot of nothing but my belief. Oh, let's take that one again. Let it pop it here. Word salad that boils down to, here's what I believe, not why you should believe it too. Great call. And I think that's been, kind of underlying his whole thing so far. It's just like, look at me, with some platitudes about we're going to get back to the America that we love or whatever. But good catch, Daniel. That's exactly what I think is missing here.
And being exacerbated. But we've done very well on environment, not because I'm doing kooky liberal things, but because I'm focusing on things that actually impact the daily lives of Floridians. And oh, by the way, I've never come to Iowa without someone coming up to me that they tell me they spend time in Marco Island or Sarasota or wherever, and I see half the Midwest down in Southwest Florida during the winter months.
This is not about Florida. I understand you're playing to a Florida crowd, but it is 2023. And what was it, 10, 15 years ago when we heard Hillary Clinton using her Southern drawl when she was down in Atlanta? You know this is going out everywhere. So playing to a Floridian crowd is, again, just not understanding the role of what you're trying to do here. If this wasn't being broadcast to everybody, then I'd say he's doing exactly what you should do. Play to your audience. But your audience is not just Floridians right now, and he's not seeing that. Melted Mind Media says, at least Biden, you're waiting for him to sniff someone. Well, I guess. St. Michael said he's referring to super old people. And we all know how much voting people really care about old people.
And that's a good thing. But when you see half of New Jersey down there, does that make you worry?
Hey!
So here's the truth. When I became governor, and I was born and raised in Florida, I had never seen a California license plate in the state of Florida in my life. And all of a sudden we start seeing California plates. My supporters are like, uh-oh, who are these people? Because remember, I may have won by 20 points in November, but usually Florida races were 1%. So if you bring in 50,000 Californians, 50,000 people from New York, all of a sudden it could be a blue state. We would have supporters go to supermarkets in like Palm Beach, find every New York or New Jersey license plate, put a flyer in the windshield and say, do not vote down here the way they vote up there. But what ended up happening was, I think we drew people who believed in what we were doing. It wasn't just these were liberals who just wanted no state income tax. There may have been some of those, but I think most of these people said, you know what? Florida's a free state. I'm not dealing with these lockdowns. Florida has kids in school. I'm not going to not have my kids be able to be in school. Florida has a 50-year low in the crime rate. I don't want to see rioting in my neighborhood. So there were a whole bunch of reasons why people did it, but the political orientation of it actually turned out pretty good.
So you're getting the good ones.
I think he's basically just saying, again, look how well I did in Florida, and I'll do that for America too. But that's not a thing. That's not an argument. You have to say how, because Florida and America, while Florida is in America, not the same thing. not the same thing.
We're getting good ones. And you know what? We're converting people too. I mean, that's, I think, something that we have to do as a movement. You know, you can't just preach only to the choir. I want to get some other people who may not have voted Republican in the past and get them on our team. And
But you just said that you're going to be a pro-life president that is going to make that procedure illegal. So how are you going to get them on if that's how hard you're coming out? I'm not saying that I'm not in favor of that being the case. I mean, there's a complicated conversation there, but you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Luke says, DeSantis is boring. He'd be better off as the man behind the policy rather than the figurehead. I agree. St. Michael said, Florida has plenty of cities and towns with major violent crime issues. Yep, that's also true. Daniel says, the St. Michael, is that just down to the governor or district attorneys? So that's a good question. Either way, I mean, that the buck stops here. That's the line we're going with. So if you're the highest name in Florida, then I'm putting it on you. And if you're certainly if he's going to blame the DAs, then I don't want to hear who he's going to blame when he's in the White House.
We've done that in Florida in record numbers, and I think it can be done across the country. We're up against a movement that is parroting woke ideology, that their message to the American people is that men can get pregnant. Really? What? That you should swim on the men's swim team for 3 years, switch to the women's team, and you can be the women's national champion? Most people don't buy that. And so I think we have an opportunity to really capture a lot of voters by representing a platform of common sense and sanity and traditional American values.
Okay, cool. What's that platform?
Amen. So as president, you'd be in charge pretty much single-handedly of America's foreign policy. So with that in mind, I have to ask you about Ukraine. So in the spring, you described the war in Ukraine as a, quote, territorial dispute. You issued a statement saying it was a territorial dispute that was not central to America's national interest. There was an outcry over this. And then pretty soon after, you seemed to change your view and describe Putin as a war criminal and say that it was central to America's foreign policy. Why did you change, and where are you now?
All right, now we're getting into some good questions, because not only is it about your position, but the fact that you flipped. If you don't have a good reason for that, there's always room for us to change our positions with good reason. But if you don't have good reason, then the only thing that we can assume is that you are trying again to pander.
So the last part I did not say. I served in Iraq during the Iraq campaign in Fallujah. I was attached to U.S. Navy SEAL Team 1.
I don't care.
And remember, it started on what WMD. Then we had Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Then it was create a democracy. Then it was that. And so the lesson that I learned from there is if you're going to commit to do military, whether it's aid or whether it's troops, you need to have a concrete idea of what you're trying to achieve. And so from the time I got out of the sandbox and landed back in the United States 15 years ago until the present, I've always felt that. And so my critique of the DC foreign policy elite is that they are doing a blank check policy without telling us when we will have achieved our objective. And I believe that today, and I believe that then. Now, because you dissent from the DC foreign policy elite, they then try to smear you and say, oh, you must be for Putin. I've always thought Putin's a bad guy. I still think he's a bad guy, but that's a separate question for a leader who's got to look at the world in very clear-eyed glasses. You know that it's not all peaches and cream out there, and you have to make a judgment about what's in America's national interest. And so that's the position that I believe, and I also believe that I wish the DC elites cared as much about our border as they do about the Ukraine-Russia border. Because there's people pouring into this country.
Fair enough. He overtalks too. That was your line. I wish they cared as much about the Ukraine border as they do as our border. Stop. Get the applause. But you're just rambling. Daniel says, I'd love to see the full context of him discussing that. I agree, because it's not typical. I mean, I'm especially at this point and the stakes that, Tucker's just there and this guy's running for president. If Tucker says, hey, first you did this, then you did that, I'm going to go and, without having seen the full context, I'm going to assume that that was a lie.
We have people dying from fentanyl overdose. The cartels are running the show. And what I've said is this is something on day one. Declare a national emergency, mobilize all resources, including the military, stop the invasion, yes, build the wall, but most importantly, authorize the Border Patrol, authorize our military to deal with the cartels. If they're breaking into our country, bringing product, if I'm in charge, that's going to be the last thing they do because they're going to end up stone cold dead.
There you go. Okay, well said. So part of what I am judging here as well is how I think other people will interpret this. Because remember, before Trump, being boring was being presidential. And you wanted charisma, but you didn't want to be a character. But for better or worse, that has changed. And now you do need to be that figurehead. You do need to get people on the on that charismatic level that they actually like you, not just that they support your policies, because Trump changed the game. Samuel said Russia labeled BLM a terrorist organization in 2016. What took them so long?
But if we just go back. But I got a great critique. So what?
Klug says the only reason that Trump talking works is because he's charismatic, experienced entertainer who doesn't let up on anyone he rips into. Bingo! And DeSantis just doesn't have that. It just doesn't have that. So if we were just talking purely policy, then we're having a different conversation. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an American general election for president. And again, for a better or worse, who you are and how people receive you matters a lot. A lot. Guys, can I just get 2 more likes, please? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What is the goal, do you think, in Ukraine? When do we know we've achieved it?
They will not define it. And
what do you think it should be?
I think the goal should be to have a sustainable peace in Europe. Okay, we don't want there to be war breaking out. There have been a lot of people that have been killed, displaced. It's a horrible thing, but you have to provide an articulation of where you're going to go to get there. And my fear is right now is they're basically doing an open-ended conflict. This is going to be a multi-year quagmire. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to die, and there's not going to be much facts change on the ground. And the dispute at this point, or the war at this point, is not whether Ukraine's government is going to fall. They're fighting over territory on the far eastern part of the country between Russia and Ukraine. And that's kind of where this is at. So the question is, okay, how do you get that to where we can stop this? And also, from our national interest, this is humiliating for our country that we're running out of ammunition. They're now trying to mobilize troops, U.S. troops, to go to Europe. When we have a major threat in the Indo-Pacific, the Chinese Communist Party, who they're basically given a free pass to, as president.
I mean, he's, again, I'm agreeing with what he's saying. I'm just having a really hard time grappling onto what parts of what he's saying actually matter to me. Of course it all matters, but we're comparing them to each other. Klug says DeSantis would work so much more if he stopped himself from giving indirect answers and simply laid things out flat. More power with less words that are pointed. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Because, again, I like what he's saying, but he's just, like, spit it out, bro. Spit it out.
I would prioritize the threats to our national security. The top threat to this country is China. It's China's ambitions, it's China's industrial capacity, it's the CCP's ability to pollute our culture, impact our universities. Incidentally, in Florida, we got rid of the Confucius Institutes that they put in universities. We cracked down on them being able to do research dollars to our universities, and we banned any purchase of land by the CCP in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So
here's the thing, though. You have to do what's based on our interests. You can't subcontract out our interests to a foreign leader. You can't want it to go on because it'll be good for defense contractors or, globalist investors. It's all about what's in our interests. And I think we're basically in a situation with our foreign policy. We're providing a blanket security to Europe. They're not paying their fair share, and we're not doing what we need to do to project power in the Pacific. At the end of the day,
So I don't know if you noticed this, but I typically try to find a break when he's talking to pull myself up. But already, what, 2 or 3 times I pulled myself up thinking that he's going to stop, and he just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going and going. And it's not just a personal thing about what I want to listen to. It's hard to, again, grab onto what is the actual piece that you just said that I can agree or disagree with, because now you've just moved on and moved on and moved on. Let the pieces, he's only stopped for an applause break once. He said a lot of things that warrant applause, but he's not stopping. And it's just getting all jumbled together. You know, as a dog trainer, there's a reason that when I start with new clients, we don't use the word no. We don't use the word no. That doesn't mean we don't correct the dogs, but we don't use the word no because no is a very easy word to ignore. It doesn't have any sharp sounds, so just no. It's very easy for a dog to learn to ignore that. So when we do an ah, yeah, sorry, headphones people, but that's going to work a lot better. And so that's what DeSantis needs to do. He needs to go from no to Shout out to Mike W in the building. Seems to be sharing the same sentiment of all of us. And we're still 50-50 on the poll. Will DeSantis, we just went over to 56%. Will DeSantis make it through the primaries? We are now at 56% no. If you have not voted, please let us know what you think. Welcome to the party, Mike.
CCP respects hard power. And I'm concerned that because a strong America can deter conflict.
Thank you for the likes, guys. Much appreciated.
I think a weak America may be on the path to inviting conflict with China. And if we continue to be weak abroad and allow our culture to deteriorate here at home, we can have a situation where our kids or grandkids are studying, memorizing 37 different pronouns in Mandarin.
I mean, they've been saying that forever. Not like things aren't getting worse, but they've been saying that forever. Shout out to Laura Diaz Otten. Welcome to the party. Said he sounds like background noise. I mean, can anybody disagree with that? I'm right there with you. Welcome to the party, Laura. Daniel says, this fool has hung around old people too long. Oh my God. That is on point, bro. That is on point. He's just used to my son, he's a doctor over at the hospital. I think he was second in line, but then he was first. There was a guy named Roger who was going in. Anyway, you can't be talking to all of America like that. We will be bored. We will get bored. Come on. Do better.
And we can't have that. So we've got to do better as a country. We need to reverse the decline of this country because it is happening very, very quickly.
So you inherit this mess a year and a half from now, say, and let's just say it's static. It's where it is right now. What do you do about it? How do you act?
Good question.
One, Europe needs to do more. This is their backyard.
That's not an answer of what you are going to do. What I'm going to do is Europe needs to do more.
What? We have NATO countries that don't produce support for their own defenses.
So what he should have said is, I'm going to make European countries do more. It's little things about the way that you say things that really matter.
And we're supposed to do it, and we're taking away weapons and ammo that could go to respond to contingencies overseas. So we would do more in terms of the Pacific. And the goal should be to bring it to a conclusion. You bring it to a conclusion in a way that's a sustainable peace and that doesn't reward aggression. And you have to be able to use different levers that you have. I mean, for example, one of the leverages I
was about to stop there, but he's still going.
Would use vis-a-vis Russia is I would do our own energy exploration and send it over to Europe so they don't have to rely on Putin. I would stop giving Iran a free pass like Biden is because they're funding Russia. So we have some ability to use this.
It seems like he's just trying to throw out all of the things. Just throw out everything that might sound good, and hopefully somebody will catch one thing here or there. Instead of having a cohesive message, a beginning, a middle, and an end of this is what I am here for, this is what I stand for, this is why you should vote for me. Tucker's giving him very direct, pointed questions. And he's just not doing well.
But the goal should be we cannot have a quagmire that goes on for years and years. And seeing Biden put those troops there, I can tell you, we cannot have American troops in Ukraine. That is a total non-starter.
And I completely agree there. But you already used the word quagmire. So why not just say we cannot have another Iraq? We cannot have another war about WMDs. Put some imagery. Put some, you're just like, I mean, Daniel, you said it so well. You said it so well. He's so dry. It's not like I disagree with what he's saying. But you have to do better.
So why? I mean, you've got a whole Congress, and there are a ton of Republicans there. They claim they run the House. I haven't heard anybody say that. Why?
Well, no, I think some of them tried to say that there should be.
Yeah, they lost badly. No, they got 33 votes.
They did, but I'm just. Yeah. I think there are some people that said you need to define the mission before you're able to send any American tax dollars over. No, by the way, they haven't even been able to account for all this. So we don't know who's coming across the southern border. We don't know where all the money sent to Ukraine has gone. We don't know whose cocaine it was in the White House. I mean,
what's your guess on that?
I was going to, my button's gone.
I've been there before, yeah.
Hold on. Wait, what did you say? Oh, yeah. Obviously, that was a perfect opportunity to make a Hunter joke. What are you doing? Who is prepping this man? Shout out to Opus. Welcome to the party.
Producer on the stage. I'm sorry. I mean,
let me put it this way. We have issues in Florida with parents' rights, and they're trying to put pornography in the schools. I think a lot of you have seen this. It's sad that this is the case. Yep. We allow the parents to blow the whistle. You can get it out. And our message to people has basically been like, look, adult material does not belong in a 5th grade classroom. If you want to see the pornography, just check out Hunter's laptop. I'm sure you can have that till your heart's content.
All right.
Is that available in your schools?
Hopefully not.
My kids are older. I don't know. So, how concerned are you that in the wake of whatever the next economic disruption that we're going to...
All right, before he gets to that, Daniel says, hell with it. I'm not in for Vivek. He can defend himself. And who knew answering a question succinctly would be a hard box to tick? You're not, or you are with Vivek? Because it sounds like you're saying he's doing good, but you said you're not in for Vivek, or you said I'm voting for Vivek. Either way, I support Vivek, and I didn't realize this was going to be so boring. So if we get through this, I have the Vivek one as well. We can dive into that. Hold on 1 second here.
We're going to face is, and everyone kind of feels like maybe there's something coming that will wind up with digital currency issued by the central bank.
Well, if I am the president on day one, we will nix central bank digital currency. Done, dead, not happening in this country.
That's good.
In the state of Florida.
That's a big one. That's a big one. And this is what we need, those moments. This is not going to happen. Leave it there. Leave it there. Sound bites. You need the sound bites.
Florida, because the Fed has been talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
And what the Fed said was, well, we wouldn't do it without consulting the legislative and executive branches. Ideally, we would get a law passed. No. That's not how the Constitution says. It's only ideal that you get a law passed. You would have to get a law passed. I don't think Congress would pass that. So I think the Fed may try to do something unilaterally. So what we did in Florida is we basically passed a law that says we do not recognize CBDC in the state of Florida. And I think other states are probably going to follow suit. That will jam their ability to do it through executive action. They don't have authority to do it. There'd be lawsuits and everything. For those
So it sounds, Kluk's asking, why hasn't he been saying he should answer every question like this? Why isn't he? What I'm gathering so far is, despite the fact we're almost halfway through this, maybe he just needed some time to ramp up, because he basically kind of came out, and Tucker was strong with the questions, and I guess he just needed to ramp up. So Mike says, show Pence. Was there really much more to it than him saying the Americans are not his concern? That's really, talk about a boring guy. Talk about a boring guy. If we're going to show anything, we're definitely going over to Vivek. But yeah, I mean, and even giving him the benefit of the doubt, I kind of understand what he meant to say when Tucker was asking, you're talking about Ukraine and all the way over what about Americans? And your concern is Ukraine. And so Pence was saying, no, that's not my concern. My concern is all of it. But exactly like we're talking about here, you can't make blunders like that. You can't make blunders like that. What about Americans? That's not my concern.
What?
You're running for president, bro. Laura says, we are the world leaders. We are the world leaders. We didn't get there by crying about underspending by our partners who are not considered leaders of the free world. It's not cheap or easy to maintain leadership status. Well said. Well said. And that's why we are, very strong about you have to, check all these boxes. You have to do this right before you earn my vote. And I don't know about the rest of you guys, but after having been brainwashed to vote for the most evil woman, maybe outside of Ghislaine Maxwell, but who knows, being brainwashed by mainstream media in 2015 and casting a vote for Hillary Clinton.
How dare you?
I know. I will never be able to vote for somebody unless I am sure you have done something to earn my vote. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'm a moron. St. Michael says, to be fair, Pence wasn't polling above 1% even before the Tucker exchange. I mean, why would he? People didn't like him when Trump was in office.
Who don't know what CBDC is, what they want to do, and this is tied in with like Davos, World Economic Forum, all these people. They want the Fed, they want to get rid of cash. They want no cryptocurrency, and they want this to be the sole form of legal tender. And they have said this publicly at like Davos and these other places.
And so what they want to do is create this centralized thing so that instead of it's already very centralized with the banks and credit and all that. But once they have one form of currency, then they can, the social engineering is going to be so easy. All they have to do is shut off your ability to pay for anything and force you to do whatever it is that they want. Oh, you're using too much AC. Oh, you're using too much gas. You said the wrong word on Twitter. Whatever. And you are just debanked. Because it's not a private bank, which is, how private are they really? But it's directly from the government. Shout out to the Free Ego. Welcome to the party. He said, yeah, I don't know how the fuck anybody voted for that shriveled grandma. TDS. That's how. Trump derangement syndrome and mass mail-in ballot. That's how. Opus said, needs to go further than banning CBDC. We need an anti-ESG legislation. We definitely do. But I'm not gonna ding him for not saying that here. That's a little bit more in the weeds. That's something that, because right now he has to explain what CBDC even is. So that's a little bit further down the road, I think, but definitely agree.
It will allow them to prohibit, quote, undesirable purchases like fuel and ammunition. And so the minute you give them the power to do this, they are going to impose a social credit system on this country. Yep. CBDC is a massive threat to American liberty. On January 20th, 2025, it goes to the ash heap of history in this country.
There you go.
So if you were to become president, and previous presidents have discovered this, so you and the vice president too, but you're the only elected leaders in an executive branch that's the largest human organization in history. Millions of people, work for you. And a lot of them just hate you because they're all partisan Democrats. And they work to subvert you from day one. And again, we've just seen this at scale. What do you do about that? Like, what do you do about the FBI or the CIA or agencies that are heavily armed?
If he doesn't just say, ban them, dismantle them, even as a joke, that is being served up to you on a platter. He asked this as soon as Tucker's done with this question. And he has any brain. He just sits there. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the fuck rid of that. Or, something strong and just leave it there. Even if it's a joke. No. I'm just kidding, obviously. And then go into his answer. Who thinks he's really going to do that?
And have intel capacities you don't have. And they're vast. How do you manage that?
With me on day one, you get a new director of the FBI. We need that. That's going to happen. So I think a couple things. One, there are thousands of positions in the executive branch that are appointed by the president. You got to have all those people ready to go to be submitted to the Senate in January of 2025. You can't wait 2 years to fill all the positions, because then these career bureaucrats, they just take over. So you got to
see, again, that was a salient point. That was a salient point. Let that sit. Let people understand what you're saying. You just made a great point, but you just whizzed right on by it. And again, Frigo is talking about outlawing all the alphabet agencies. Again, super down with that, but I don't know if that's how you the angle that you want to take right now. He's on his back foot. He's on the defensive, so he needs to get everybody on his side before he can start, doing anything firebrand. Which is probably why he's not going to make it very far at all, because he's already he's started on his back foot. Does that include IHOP? I sure hope not. I haven't been IHOP in ages, but who doesn't love IHOP or IHOB? IHOB. Who told them to do that? What was the whole IHOB thing? Come on. Mike says Tucker was tough on all of these Republicans. I wish the left reporters would do the same to the Democrats. I agree, but of course they won't, because they don't actually care about getting the truth. They just care about winning. They don't care about actually understanding what Joe Biden is planning to do for America. Like he has a plan. They care about winning. Frigo says, I don't care if anything is feasible. Introduce the idea to the public and let it simmer when you explain just how they screw you over. Exactly. How are a bunch of nobodies? We're a bunch of nobodies being able to pick out so easily what he's doing wrong here. Are there not professionals who have prepped him for this? Has he not already been a public figure for years? He had a little bit of it in the middle there, but he's already kind of gone back down. Well, I don't care. Make me excited, especially at this point in the race. At this, if we're talking, next summer, then yeah, I definitely want to hear more about policies and specifically how you're going to enact this and that and the other. But it's 2023, bro. It's summer 2023. The election's over a year away. Just say stuff to get me excited. And we can get into the details later. But if you don't get me excited now, then you're done.
Have your people in there on day one. You also have to have certain character of people. Like if you're the Attorney General, everything you do to deal with the DOJ, end the weaponization of government, deal with the FBI, the press is going to rake you over the coals. The left is going to rake you over the coals. The Democrats, they're all going to rake you over the coals. You either are down for that or you're not. And if you can't handle that, if you don't have the backbone to do that, you will fail at that job. So
stop there. You will fail at that job. Stop. Let them applaud you. Let the point sit that I am the one that has the backbone. Listen to it. I'm going to pause it when he says that. And tell me this wouldn't land exactly as I just said, that he's saying that other people don't have the backbone, but I have the backbone.
You either are down for that or you're not. And if you can't handle that, if you don't have the backbone to do that, you will fail.
Why did you not do that? Why did you not do that? You will fail.
So you need people.
Or is it a fail at that job? Whatever. But same thing. He's just not doing well. Laura says DeSantis is bombing simply because he's not a people person. He's a fake strongman wannabe big balls. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Going hard. Yeah, I agree. I think, in as a big fish in a small pond, he did great. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't continue to do well in Florida. But this is showing me he's not the guy. He's not the guy.
And I look at different folks in government, like on the Supreme Court. I would look to Clarence Thomas as the example because he doesn't budge. He doesn't care what the media says about him. They've smeared him 6 ways from Sunday.
You already said 6 ways from Sunday.
He does what he thinks is right. So you got to have those people. And then you have levers that you can pull. I believe Article 2 of the Constitution means the president has the executive authority. We just say these bureaucrats somehow can't be held accountable. I disagree with that. I think you can fire them. If we have an FBI agent going to harass a pro-life activist like they did Mark Houck and send a SWAT team, I fire them immediately. When you have FBI colluding with big tech.
See, they're already clapping. That's another part of the optics of people who are not there. Listening to the crowd and the little golf clap is not going to get people excited. You need roaring applause, and you need to create that.
To censor dissent. I would fire those people. Had I been president 2020, Anthony Fauci would have been fired, and you've got to be willing to do it.
There you go.
I mean, the censorship regime in place during the last presidential election, and by the way, I think it remains in place in the federal agencies, telling information providers, the social media companies, what they can and cannot run. No one's been held accountable. Meanwhile, Julian Assange is still in prison thanks to our efforts. Would you pardon him, and would you hold those people who are violating the First Amendment accountable?
So these people that violated the First Amendment, yeah, they need to be held accountable for that. People died as a result of that because they were censoring truthful information about COVID that if people would have adopted those policies, the country would have been better off. Individual states would have been better off. And so I think it had a profound effect. The fact that they censored dissent on COVID meant some kids got locked out of school for a year. The fact that they censored dissent on COVID meant that some people took some of these booster shots when they didn't need to, and they ended up having an adverse reaction. So it had major, major impact. So
Again, I can't do anything but listen to all the points where you have the applause break built in. I'm sure the speechwriters are pulling their hair out. It's like, guy, we gave you, this is why we put 3 periods here, to stop. Because you're going to say something that people are going to like, and then you want the applause. Then it'll make them feel like they're more on your side, and you keep going, and it's a feedback loop. But if you just run through everything, it sounds like a lecture.
So I think not just with the censorship, I think everything involving COVID, I think there needs to be major, major accountability, because if there's not, if you don't have a reckoning, they are going to do it again. They are going to do it again. Now, in terms of using pardon, my goal is to end the weaponization of government. And that involves firing people. It involves taking parts of the DOJ and putting them in other states. Iowa, if you guys want a part of the DOJ, I'll send it out here, send it to Alabama, wherever. And we're going to do that. We're going to take power out of Washington. But part of what you need to do, if you have a 2-tiered system of justice, you need to make sure if there's some people that got away that shouldn't have, they need to face the music. And if there are other people that are getting targeted through abuse of government, then there needs to be use of the pardon power. So the day after the election, we're going to open up an ability for people to submit applications, ask for the pardon based on whether they were treated dissimilarly or whether the government mobilized against them. And so we're going to do it the front end of the administration. I'm not going to wait till my last day in office. Do it the front end. And if people are doing that, and that's part of ensuring a single standard of justice, we will be willing to use the pardon power. It's going to be done on a case-by-case basis because I'm a governor and I've actually had to look at these things, and you owe it to the
I've been waiting
to everybody to do that. But we will be issuing pardons, and that'll be determined based on the facts and circumstances at the time.
Oh, okay. Well, good to know. Pardons may be used, and based on the facts and certain circumstances at the time. Instead of day 1, Julian Assange pardoned. Let's go. Like, does he even want to win? Does he even care about this stuff? Daniel says, given how he runs, I don't think he does. Yeah, his thought process. I don't think he understands his thought process either. Because again, as I just noted, there's the writing of the speech is not great, but it's not terrible. But he's just not using the cadence that he needs to get out of this speech or this interaction what he needs to. And that is very, very, very telling. Now, again, if we were a year from now and we had something like this and it wasn't the most exciting thing, that would be very, very different. Because at that point, he would have had to already get us excited, already show that he has the energy. But he's trying to put the cart before the horse. He's trying to be like, guys, trust me. I'm going to have all this stuff set up. But we're not there yet. We're not worried about what you have set up yet. We care, like, how are you feeling about this? That's it.
We know that the U.S. government reads the private communications of American citizens by the tens of millions without a warrant. And everyone knows this. It's been revealed. They've admitted it. And no one has moved to stop it. Do you think that there's a good reason to allow this? How can that be?
No. I mean, I think the government.
So before he goes into that, Laura says, where is the reckoning for the main reason we were caught short-handed, like when Trump knew weeks ahead of time and kept it to himself and giving China props for their great handling of the virus? Exactly. Even if you don't think that Trump did anything wrong, those are the people that you need to convince. His whole thing was he was the only guy that was right on COVID. And Trump, still to this day, will tout warp speed, greatest thing ever. That's what you need to do. And I understand that Tucker's not specifically asking about that the whole time. But like any other politician, you answer whatever question you want. He asks you a question about Ukraine, you bring it back to COVID. I mean, I took one political science class, and the teacher barely spoke English, and I didn't even really understand it. And yet I'm sitting here understanding the political science of what's going on here better than he is. I mean, it is mind-blowing. Daniel says, pardon Edward Snowden. Yeah, that if like he would have gotten a standing ovation if he just said, boom, pardon Edward Snowden, pardon Julian Assange. That's how we're going to start. Why not? Why not? There you are.
I think the federal government has a responsibility to protect us from foreign threats. We're going to have intelligence capabilities overseas, but to turn those on our own citizens, especially with this government's behavior, is totally untenable. I am going to go in and declassify or put as much stuff out as I can. I think that you guys have a right to know things that happened 60, 70 years ago that the government's kept under wraps. Now, obviously, obviously, if things that are more recent, if there's stuff, I mean, you have to make those judgments. But my default is going to be that they're going to have a high burden to justify why it shouldn't be public for some of these main things that we all talk about that have occurred in the past, because the government uses classification as a way to evade accountability for itself. I think there is a legitimate use of classified information, but it's like what should be classified and what actually is like so much more. And so it's all about protecting their power. But it's a huge, huge problem in how they've conducted this. And to turn the government on the American people, that's the founding fathers' worst nightmare.
So let me just end with a shallow question based on speculation. Do you think Biden will be the Democratic nominee?
Honestly, I go back and forth because as an incumbent president, unless he's willing to step aside, I don't think they can get him out of there. On the other hand, I'm fully prepared to have a Florida-California showdown and let the people choose what's the better vision for the United States of America, because I'm very confident that the freedom in Florida is what more people would choose rather than the public defecation on the streets of San Francisco.
How do you make that a boring sentence? I think the people would prefer the freedom in Florida than the public defecation and the streets of San Francisco. And then smug smile. Smug smile. So here's what we're going to do. And Opus said the DOD has never passed an audit. True. So, I mean, I can't imagine that he does anything amazing in the next 10 minutes. So let's switch on over to our boy, Vivek Ramaswamy, and let's get a head-to-head comparison of exactly, what's going on and what are we dealing with.
Is that on? So Vivek is the only person I think.
Whoa. I don't know if California is way better than Florida. I don't know about all of that. I'm sure it's a beautiful place to live. But politically, I'll take Florida over California any day. But, hey, to each their own.
Think who hasn't, practiced politics for a living. Correct.
Yeah, I'm not a practitioner.
No, you're not. You're not a practitioner. So it's interesting. So let me just start with a very quick overview. You've been traveling around the country for the past, 3 months, 4 months?
Yeah, 4 months.
How do you think the country's doing?
I think the country is doing poorly, is the answer. I think that we have a void in our country. I'm the first millennial ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. And I see people my age in particular across this country who are not doing well because we're starved for purpose and meaning. The people are looking to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And yet we've lost the things that used to ground us. Faith, patriotism, hard work, family. These things are gone. And so we're lost in the wilderness. And then we latch on to whatever the other side serves up for us. You know, we could wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, whatever it is.
I mean, already, are you guys not seeing the difference? Are you not seeing the difference? We've been listening to him for a minute and a half with all the audio issues that we got at the beginning of this video. And already, he's pulled me in. He's talking about me specifically. He's talking about an issue that I specifically deal with. And he's using language that is evoking emotion. And he's also speaking in a way where it's not monotone.
These are symptoms, drug addiction, depression, suicide, you name it. These are symptoms of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in our country. But Tucker, I think the good news in that is I think our country's not doing well, but I think that this is also our opportunity as a movement to level up and fill that void, that vacuum, with our own vision. Individual, family, nation, God. When I talk to young people about this, they're more interested in that than they are in race, gender, sexuality, and climate. And so now we got to start running to something as Americans. And if we do, I'm confident that our country will be doing well again. That's where I'm at.
Is it my imagination, or are people who weren't raised in traditional religious households, who haven't spent a lot of time thinking about theology, all of a sudden talking about God a lot? Do you notice that?
I do notice that, actually. And I think this is a good sign because there's an old expression, right? If there's a hole the size of God in your heart and God does not fill it, something else will instead.
Ooh, that's a good line. And for those of you who don't know, I am an atheist. I grew up Catholic. I was confirmed in the Methodist Church. And in my journey to try to get closer to God, I lost my faith. But I still very much have a reverence for Christian values. And so I do want those values to be represented in society. But I just don't think that we need to shove it in the box of religion because of exactly what he just said. If there's a God if there's a God size hole in your heart, and God doesn't fill it, well, something else is going. Something else will. And we can either have that something else be leftism, or we can have that something else be a secular moral structure that very closely mimics what Christianity is. So whether you're a Christian or not, you should want the latter. You shouldn't want the typical atheist leftism that we have today. That should be universal.
That's what's happened in the last decade in our country. Something else, some secular religion has filled that void.
Right, but the wrong secular religion. Just because it's a secular religion, Buddhism can be a secular religion. I think we'd be a lot better off if all the leftists were Buddhists instead of leftists. But we have to open the door. We have to create the path for those people who are never going to be able to believe in God ever again, no matter how hard you do or how hard you try. It's just not going to happen. That doesn't mean they can't be moral people. That doesn't mean they can't share the moral values that you have. That doesn't mean that we can't live in a shared way. But you have to create that. And so I'm not going to even pick on the fact that he's talking specifically about God and calling these things secular religions because of exactly what I was saying about DeSantis, is that this is the time to, have the big ideas, throw the big things out there. And then later down the road, you can say, okay, yes, well, we say that we want God and this and that. But, even if you're an atheist and even if you're not a believer, but you believe in this, that's the kind of thing. That's how this should all be playing out. So, I mean, shout out to Vivek once again.
But it hasn't really satisfied our moral hunger, right? And so that's that effect is fading. And I think people are hungry to turn back to the real thing. The conversation's coming up.
The question is Christianity the real thing?
but they say it with a kind of prudishness.
Yes.
Right? God is a four-letter word. It's sort of a thing you have to tiptoe around. And I think that right now, family's the same way. The nuclear family makes some people uncomfortable when I say it, but actually this is the best known form of governance to mankind. And so if we start talking more about, hey, that's what we're running to. That's actually what we stand for. Yes, we are one nation. I'm a citizen of this nation.
Exactly. And Obama is saying we can't coexist with the far left. They are anti-family, anti-community, and anti-American. Exactly. Because instead of the secular, not religion, but the secular values that I'm talking about, instead of those filling their God-sized hole, they chose all of this. So maybe those people are too far gone. Maybe millennials, Gen X, and boomer atheists are too far gone. Maybe. I don't believe so, but let's say that that's the case. If you can take every single non-God-believing Zoomer and Gen Alpha in the next 20 years and turn them away from these values and towards the values that we all, atheists or not, we all value, then we will be better off. Now, it's a different conversation about whether we should be talking about, these values in the context of religion or not. It's a little bit of an aside, but still very important. I'm always going to take the opportunity to talk about secular does not mean bad. Laura says there's too many to be labeled under either left or right or even middle. What do you mean? Too many religions or too many atheists? I'm not sure you mean that.
Not some nebulous global citizen somewhere else. That it is one nation under God. Yes, it is a nation that is stronger when we ground ourselves in the unit of the family. Then I notice something happens, especially for younger people across the country, Tucker, is they're more open to that message than they thought, but they need someone to serve it up to them.
Not only do they need someone to serve it up to them, but they need someone to serve it up to them in a different way than the priest in their church when they were 5 years old. That message did not land. And so they need it served in a different package. We want the same values. You just, instead of saying dogmatically, well, it came from God and God is God, so you have to do it. People are going to be like, hold on, wait a minute. I don't know. How do you know this God exists? How do you know this? That? It doesn't matter. To be an American, it means that you care about family. To be an American, you care about our rituals and our celebrations and 4th of July. To be an American, you do all of these things. Then God doesn't have to come into it at all. If you want to be a Christian, then great for you. And if you're not, you still have a path to be a good American citizen. Right now, we don't have that. It just doesn't exist. Oh, just in general. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are vague terms that we just kind of use in relation. Definitely, there's a lot more nuance than just left, right, or middle. But, it just makes conversation a little bit easier. But definitely agree. Definitely agree.
And I think I'm the first non-politician, but I'm also a younger person in this race. I don't have a ton of experience running governments before.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We don't like people who have been career politicians.
But I think in reaching younger people, that's something I feel called to do in this race. And it's why we're traveling college campuses across this country. And I am optimistic about what I see.
Well, since you are a younger person and spend time with them, we saw yesterday that a group of reservists has been called up to Europe, apparently, to prepare for war with Russia. Of people in the age cohort who might plausibly be called up to do that, what's the response?
I think there is no basis for us to send our young men and women, our sons and daughters, people my age or any age, to go defend somebody else's border halfway around the world when we should be using our own military to secure our own border in this country. And I will not apologize for that.
I mean, listen to the difference. Listen to the difference in the applause of the exact same people. The exact same people.
We have to put the interests of this country first. And one of the things that does frustrate me, Tucker, is that This is one issue where I so love many of the other people who are running for this nomination for president. I think most of us and the entire field I speak for are in this for the right reasons. We are people who care about our country and want to deliver our country to a better place. But on this issue, nearly our entire field is indistinguishable in practice from where Biden is on this.
Yeah, I hope it's saying Vivek is busting his ass. Well, everyone else is just started saying, well, it's early yet. Yeah, I mean, this is what you need early on. Early yet is this. Early yet is not what DeSantis is doing. That's later on.
Which is in an undefined,
if you get that far,
the ill-defined way, pouring more money into a war that I think is destined to become Vietnam or Iraq all over again.
Exactly.
And if you don't learn from the lessons of the past, you're going to be making the same mistakes on an even larger scale going forward.
That's exactly, hold on, come here, where'd you go? Come here, you want to come here? Come on. That's exactly what I was saying. No? Okay. Morty doesn't want to come. That's exactly what I was saying about when DeSantis was talking about all this and, oh, it can be another quagmire. Yes, that's what it's called. But use the language that is going to evoke people. We don't want another Vietnam. Instead of blathering on and on and on and on and on about the point. We get the point. We agree with the point. We've been asking for this stuff for years. You just have to tell us that you're going to do it in a way that we actually care. Vivek or Trump? So, I mean, right now, it doesn't really seem like Vivek is going to have a chance. But if he does, I absolutely would vote for Vivek over Trump as of right now. And I would love him as a VP. That would be amazing. Like I said, the only reason I would say Trump is because I think we need him to go in and demolish the deep state. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Opus. 100% agree.
We have to end this war. We can end this war and start prioritizing the interests of actual U.S. citizens here at home.
Say hi to Morty.
So I think, judging by the response you just got, I think a chunk of, I don't know what percentage, but a lot of Republican primary voters agree with you. Not all, but a lot. I don't think any Republican donors agree with you.
I think that's accurate. And I've lost, to be really honest with you, I've lost many large donors or prospective donors over this issue. And it puzzles me because I think the tempting thing to say is to have some conspiratorial explanation that they have money at stake and government contractors, Raytheon or whatever. I don't think that's true, actually. I think there's something else going on in the psychology of an establishment in both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party that is reluctant to the idea that we somehow can't be the ones fighting the war that's the popular war of the day, the politically correct war. I think there's no such thing as a politically correct war. And so what I ask is, how are we actually going to end this conflict in a way that advances U.S. interests? And the thing that puzzles me, Tucker, is nobody in either party is talking about this right now.
Yeah, I mean, that should be, especially, again, as we're talking about early yet, just throw out these sound bites. We are getting out of Ukraine. We are not sending U.S. troops. Just throw these things out there. How many of you would actually, sit down and watch the whole 5-hour thing? You need the Twitter clips. That's what it's all about.
The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat that the U.S. actually faces today. And we are pushing Russia closer into China's arms by actually continuing to arm Ukraine. So
think about the difference between how Vivek said that and how DeSantis said the exact same thing, but in a slightly different way. Well, actually, our biggest thing is not really Russia or Ukraine. It's definitely we need to be going over there, but I don't want to be sending over there, but it's really China. No. Vivek is putting the Ukraine war, whatever you want to call it, in the context of the bigger war. It's little semantic things like this that make all the difference in the world.
What I've said is that I would negotiate a deal that ends the Ukraine war, frees the current lines of control. Yes, that means giving part of the Donbas region to Russia. I would make a hard commitment that NATO never admits Ukraine to NATO. Yes. And those seem like unspeakable words in certainly the Republican donor class. But we get something greater in return, which is that Putin, in that case, would have to exit his military partnership with China and remove nuclear weapons from Kaliningrad, which border Poland, and get the Russian military out of Cuba and Venezuela and the West.
I mean, is there anything that could be more important right now? Besides breaking up the alliance between Russia and China against the U.S.? What could be more important than that?
And this is a deal that Putin should do because he ends up winning. He gets things that he doesn't have today. But it secures American interests, too. And I do think in a weird way, it does take an outsider to get that job done. Because if you want someone to fix a problem, you don't turn over the keys to somebody who actually broke the thing in the first place. If you want to fix it, maybe have somebody who didn't break it in the first place. And that's part of why I'm in this race as an outsider.
Okay. Well, since you're getting radical now, let's go through a list of all the other things you're not allowed to say. So you've just said...
Oh, Laura says, Putin is never going to end alliance with China. That is a pipe dream. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I mean, you know, that may very well be true. But again, we are talking about an election, which is a popularity contest. And this is doing all the right things. So what I expect, if you're going to say end the alliance between China and Russia, is that at least, I don't know, 6 months from now, let's just throw a random number, you have to have an actual policy plan. You have to have a plan as to how to do that. Right now, you're just saying the things I like because you want to get to the next step. This is how this all works. DeSantis is trying to put the cart before the horse. But I do agree with you that that's probably not going to be. I mean, that's the only power that the two of them have against us. But the you know, there's a lot at play. Free Ego is saying Putin might end an alliance if we allied with them with an actual purpose. Interesting. Yeah, interesting thought.
You know, you're not attacking anybody, but this doesn't seem to be helping us. In fact, it seems to be creating an alliance that we can't beat, and really, it's pretty scary. So let's just go through the list. Another thing you can't say is that maybe January 6th, while appalling on one level, maybe it was not an insurrection.
So,
okay, all right, let's see. This is going to be a big one. Maybe it was not an insurrection, and Vivek says. Let me talk about. I haven't talked about this much in the campaign. I'll be very honest with you. Facts, Mike.
You want to know what caused January 6th? There's such a temptation to say that there's one man whose name is unspeakable. We can't.
No, first of all, it's QAnon. It's QAnon.
It's QAnon. You want to know what caused January 6th? Is pervasive censorship in this country in the lead up to January 6th. Bingo. You tell people in this country they cannot speak. That is when they scream.
Ooh, there you go. You tell people in this country they cannot speak. That is when they scream. These are the types of sound bites a presidential candidate needs a year and a half before the election.
You tell people they cannot scream. That is when they tear things down. And so the reality is, we were told that you could not question where the virus came from when we all knew it came from a lab in Wuhan, which now they admit. We were told that you could not send a private message to someone on the eve of an election that Hunter Biden's laptop story was actually a true story worth considering before an election. You were systematically suppressed. So think about this. You told you had to be locked down, had to take a vaccine that was mandated and forced down your throat, stay locked down in your home while Antifa and BLM roam and burn the streets of this country. So that's the lead up of 1 full year of telling people you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told.
I completely agree. Lord, this is what I expect. This is what I expect from a Republican candidate summit in the year before, the summer before, or the year before. You know what I mean. But this is exactly what I expect. Exactly. I'm so glad that we were able I'm so glad that Ron DeSantis was so boring that we were able to get through that and to be able to see this. I'm actually working on changing the thumbnail and title right now because I didn't know how boring it was going to be. And I'm very glad that we are here now.
And then you tell them, okay, there's an election where you didn't get the information that you needed, such as the Hunter Biden laptop story being real and suppressed. That's what caused January 6th, is a cycle of censorship in this country. And until we look ourselves in the mirror and admit truth on that, we will not move forward as a country. And I think that's the real cause. And we're not, and I'm sorry to say this, Tucker, but I think until we reckon with that reality, I worry that is the beginning of, it's a friendly parley compared to what's to come unless we step up and speak truth, restore integrity, and actually lead us to who we are as a people rather than sweeping the truth under the rug.
Hell yeah.
How
Hell
can you,
yeah.
just as a philosophical question, a lot of the people who are pushing censorship, in fact, I would say almost all of them in both parties, particularly the Democratic Party, claim they're doing so in order to protect democracy. But how can you have a democracy with censorship?
You can't, bro. You can't.
So you want to know the best measure of the health of a democracy? We're a constitutional republic, but I'll use lowercase d democracy as a fill-in, right? Couldn't resist.
People always applaud at that. I love that.
It's just the truth, though, right?
No, it is
We're a
true.
republic.
But this,
It's a democratic republic. It's not a democracy.
civics majors love it.
Yeah, that's great. But the best measure of the health of our American democracy, our constitutional republic, is the percentage of people who feel free to say what they actually think in public.
Yep.
That's the metric. It's not the number of ballots cast every November. That's just going through the motions. It is not some other metric of what the media says on a given day. It is the percentage of people who will say in public what they're willing to say behind closed doors. There's no doubt we're doing poorly. The culture is censorious enough. Now, if you say the government on top of that is using social media companies to do through the back door what government could not censor through the front door under the Constitution, that creates the real threat to lowercase d democracy.
Mm-hmm.
My litmus test is if Vladimir Putin was doing it and we would call it a threat to democracy, it's a threat to democracy when we do it on this side of the Atlantic as well. Okay, that's a good way of not pointing the finger at somebody else, but looking ourselves in the mirror and asking ourselves who we really are. And this is personal for me. I'm a Republican candidate for U.S. president. It feels still new to say that. Not a politician by nature, but I bring that fact up, now as of very recently, certainly polling reasonably well in the recent polls. And I bring that up because against that backdrop, Microsoft owned LinkedIn, censored my social media account. They locked my account, said I can't get in to make statements that are factually grounded statements about climate change.
Grounded statements, yeah, but if you don't agree with exactly what they want you to say, then it's hate speech or disinformation or misinformation or take your pick. Laura says, how is it a democracy if being a woman means your body belongs to the government to choose as it sees fit? There's a lot of pro-life people here. And so I would answer that with that your body does not belong to the government, but the baby's body does not belong to the woman. But Daniel says the states have the right to vote for the things they want, abortion included. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Laura, but voting is voting, right?
About Biden's relationship with China, about the ESG movement's perpetuation of a climate cult in this country, all grounded in fact, saying that it violates their policies for hate speech, misinformation. And I'm not making this one up. They said violence in the email. What? And so in my case, look, I was able to publicize that. They were then claimed it was an error, restored the account, typical operating procedure. But it's that culture of censorship in our country that I think we also, I'm trying to do my part, where I was in Ottumwa, Eastern Iowa.
A what?
Earlier this week. Smaller event than this, but we're on the stage talking. Somebody walks in. She's screaming at the top of her lungs. At first, I thought usually if they're screaming, sometimes they're in favor of what you're saying. So I said, thank you. But I realized that actually, no, she...
Did you guys hear about this? Where there was some, I didn't realize where he was, but yeah, he was doing a rally and someone was yelling out at him. And everybody was like trying to shout them down and let Vivek speak. And he said, no. I want to hear what you have to say. This is what he's talking about. Laura said, I'm pro-life too. It's not impossible to be pro-life for both child and mother. That I definitely agree with. And actually, DeSantis was just talking about, the post-birth abortions. I mean, that is ridiculous. So so if there's ever, if there is a situation with like ectopic pregnancies and stuff like that, obviously it makes sense to value the life of the mother over the child, but only when they're pitted against each other. And so I'm totally in favor of if you're able to if the baby is able to survive outside of the womb, even if you don't want it, you can end the pregnancy without killing the baby. So I think we're all probably generally on the same point there. But I hear you. I definitely hear you.
When she bit you,
she came. So she was out of control. Okay,
yeah. I know her. I ran into her at Dulles Airport last week. Yeah.
We've all seen a version of her, but the truth is, so security was escorting her out, and it felt wrong to me, right? Because she came here to make a point. Mm-hmm. She was totally wild in the way she was making it, but I'm watching her walk out the door. She's at the back of the room now, and I said, this doesn't feel right. Right, because as I said earlier, you tell people they can't speak, that's when they scream. You tell people they can't scream, and she was screaming.
There you go. Shout out to Elizabeth. Welcome to the party. Said, I like the stuff Vivek has said. The problem is, the problem I have is he has tweets from the pandemic condemning Republicans on their mask position and being pro Operation Warp Speed. I did not know about that. But when was this? And when did he change his tune? Because if you remember, in the beginning, none of us knew what the hell was going on. And I am personally in favor of allowing people to be wrong and fix their positions. Because if it seemed like the right thing to be in favor of Operation Warp Speed when nobody's going on, when nobody knows what's going on, then it makes sense. All right, this seems like the right thing, but I don't know. Then as you get more information, you're like, oh yeah, no, that's BS. F that. So it definitely, I would definitely like to see what that timeline is. That definitely does matter to me. But just because he said things in the past doesn't necessarily top what he's saying now. That being said, what he's saying now as he's running for president, also you have to take with a grain of salt because he's running for president. Daniel said, and here's the big question. Where is your line to define life? I ask as a small L libertarian. I don't want the government to prosecute a 16-year-old for a double murder. I agree. I would say go after the doctors the same way that if, right now we can talk about the transgender stuff, but just to keep it out of that, if some child was to go by himself to a doctor and ask him to cut his arm off, the child wouldn't be in trouble. The doctor would be in trouble. It says when a doctor can remove the same clump of cells and get no repercussions for violating his Hippocratic oath and doing harm. Yeah, it should be a violation. It is a violation. It should be considered a violation. Well, not everybody's as smart as you. Free you go. Literally wrote code off day one of even knowing what it was. But that's just as stupid. You understand that, right? There was an actual global pandemic. It was way, 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 way weaker than anybody ever thought it was going to be. But you didn't know shit on day one. You didn't know jack shit. You guessed and you happened to be right, but you didn't know. Let's not pretend you had a crystal ball. Laura said Trump was the leader of Operation Warp Speed. Yep. Mike says if he won, none of the left will celebrate him for being the first Indian president. Yep. You are absolutely right about that. Well, he's an Indian white supremacist.
What? That's when they're going to go tear something.
Oh, so Elizabeth said the mask tweet was in July of 2020. As a Tennessean, none of us were wearing them past May. Again, that's fair. I think that's fair. This all started in the spring. That's only 3-4 months. That's all right with me. I don't have an issue with July 2020 being in favor of masks. That doesn't bother me at all. Welcome to Ayush Gupta. Sorry if I got that name wrong. Welcome to the party. Said, why do people on both sides not see it from the point that the boundaries of one body to the other are only spatial? Life is a continuum and is not beholden to space. Interesting take. So does that mean, people on both sides see it from the point that the boundaries of one body to the other are only spatial. Life is a continuum. So does that put you in the pro-life or the pro-abortion camp? This is one of those issues where you can just ask yes or no, this or that. So many other issues are much deeper and more nuanced. But this is one of those issues where you can say, at the end of the day, you either come down on this side or that side. Welcome to the party, Ayush. Elizabeth says, I don't know, most people in the medical field around me knew that mask-ish wasn't going to work. I mean, again, fair enough. If you're taking that as he said that and so I'm not going to support him, totally fine. But I'm just saying, personally, from my opinion, if it was July 2021, then we're having a different conversation. But July 2020, that's still soon enough that I can forgive somebody for not knowing what the right side to come down on is yet. That's just my personal opinion.
Something down. So I said, no, bring her back. We gave her the mic.
So again, this was the lady that was yelling at his rally.
Said, I promise, you ask your question, but I promise I get to answer it in return. She agrees to that. It turns out she's a pro-choice advocate, a my body, my choice person. I was going to the state legislature on Tuesday morning. I think she must have known that, came to this event to protest my being there. But I give her the mic. She's just talking for, 3, 4, 5 minutes. But by the end of it, it actually turns out, the story comes out that she's a single mother who did bring her daughter into the world. And the things she was saying were things like, my daughter is successful. I don't want you to look down on me. And I thought it was beautiful that the more she started talking, the more she started making our very point of why we believe in protecting life. And so I said, disagreements aside, you are a mother. We celebrate that. The audience applauded. It's why I love Iowans.
Absolutely. And if if not one of the most top imminent priorities is not getting people to be able to talk to each other and understand that despite the differences we may have, we have so much more in common with each other. If that's not a top priority for you, then you're not my guy. Elizabeth said, I just didn't like his phrasing. He said, and I quote, wearing a mask equals personal responsibility. It's puzzling when conservatives oppose it. I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on it. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that, wearing a mask equals personal responsibility. Yeah, and that's fair. We can definitely agree to disagree on this channel. I think that as of July 2020, that was still a reasonable thing to say, especially for somebody who was not, a politician.
Wow. She broke down in tears and left. And so I'm moved by what is possible in our country. Our country is broken. We are spiritually broken. We have a spiritual void in this country. It is our job to step up and fill that void by practicing what we preach as conservatives. And so I'm hoping we're doing that. I love doing that in Iowa. It's been something that's really lifted me up in a way that was never an experience I had as a CEO or in business. I've never had these experiences as we've had in the last few months. And honestly, as broken as our country is, it leaves me optimistic about where we're headed.
And you can listen to people. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Exactly.
It's not going to hurt you.
So what? Okay, so it's so interesting. So you, and I think the intro of you described some of it, but you're coming from a completely different world. It's not like you were mayor, state legislator.
Mm-hmm. And so that goes to, part of why I'm willing to give a little bit of wiggle room on the political stuff. If it were, again, if we're talking about DeSantis in July of 2020, well, guess what? They definitely locked down in July, right? So, I mean, it's a wash there. They all were on that side as of July 2020.
You're coming from business and technology and biotech. So what have you learned? How have your views changed since you immersed yourself in crowds of voters and started listening to people?
Yeah, so I think my views have changed in part by my belief that we're not as divided as they make it out to be. Bingo! Right? Because many CEOs in this country are frightened, right? Of speaking their mind openly. It actually stops, many of them will say, well, stops them from being donors to me, to maybe other causes. They're deathly scared because they believe that we're a nation at our breaking point. And in some ways, we are, because we let it get there. But one of the things I've been convinced of, I've changed my mind on, is that I don't think we're nearly as divided as we're taught to believe. Okay. But I went to the south side of Chicago, It's one of the places it's not really where the political advisors would tell you to go if you're in a Republican primary. I went to Kensington and downtown in the inner city of Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. And I'll tell you, the people in those rooms, especially on the south side of Chicago, where they're converting South Shore High School into an encampment for migrants who they're spending $7,000 per person per month on. This is the supposedly far left, nearly entirely black, Democratic voting bloc. And I have never heard more eloquent cases for securing the border and actually prioritizing the interests of Americans than I heard in that room.
What did they say?
They said, what about us?
Yeah.
Was actually the right
us? Why? Imagine that people actually care about themselves, and it's not a horrible thing. That is what all of this politics is about. What is best for me? Because what is best for me is likely best for the person next to me, and the person across and is likely best for all of us. $7K a person. Yeah. I mean, hey, these donor things, that's what my household makes in 2.5 months. Well, get into politics and you're going to get that money.
Way to say that. And it came out in many ways where, look, we are Christians. We believe in treating these people humanely. But I'm
not a Christian. I believe in people treating people humanely.
Not right that they're spending $7,000 a month and getting baby formula when I couldn't find baby formula a year ago.
I agree with that. And again, not a Christian.
I can't buy sneakers for my kids. They're providing sneakers for those kids. How does that work? How is that advancing my interest? And actually, you just reminded me of this. Many of them were asking me, as though I was on the side of it, of why on earth we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. So it was interesting to me that the traditional partisan boundaries as drawn.
Daniel says, look at New York. Let's ship the migrants back to Texas. We don't want them, but they voted to be a sanctuary city. Yeah, and then they get mad when Texas takes them up on that. Like, politics is all theater.
Are really sort of retrofitted. We're sort of shoehorning an old structure. We're sort of shoehorning the modern truth into sort of an antiquated view where I don't think the dividing line in our country is between Republicans and Democrats right now. I think it is between those.
It's the woke and the people who will think for themselves. There's many people on the left who don't like the wokeness, and there's many people on the right who are just following whoever they're following. It's not left to right. It's critical thinkers versus followers. Laura says the problem comes when our healthcare fails us timely treatment of possible issues within a pregnancy, and women's lives become secondary to the fetus, possibly losing one or both. Yeah, I agree that shouldn't be an issue. If the situation arises, it should be simply that we need to prioritize the mother. I do think that there needs to be attention paid to not just literally throwing the baby away, but I do think the mother should have precedence.
Those of us who are pro-American, who believe in the ideals of this country, who will not apologize for those ideals, who will stand up and sacrifice for those ideals.
Whether or not you believe in God.
And those of us who are, and it exists in this country, I mean, the Vice President's a great embodiment of this, anti-American. Those who wish to apologize for a nation founded on our ideals. But if you divide it up that way, it is not 50-50 anymore. It's not even close.
Nope.
It's easily 80-20 in our favor. And half the 20 are people younger than me who never learned what those ideals were in the first place. We're going to bring them along too. And I think we have an opportunity to do in this country in 2024 what Ronald Reagan did in 1980, deliver a landslide election, call the bluff on the division. Much of it is artificial. I fell for it, right? Even when I started this campaign, running.
See, we can all fall for things. He fell for that. I fell for Hillary. Doesn't mean that we can't learn. Elizabeth says another thing to look into is his company Datavant, in which he tried to pitch a national and global health database to the federal government. I can see why one would want that, but it would turn bad. Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely need to, I'm not very familiar with his past. At this stage in the game, It's not worth my time to look into somebody who is not going to be relevant in 6 weeks. I have a million other things that I need to be reading up on and catching up on that matter today. And so for today, all that really matters is, have you kept me interested? This is stuff that is going to come out as the people who go farther are under more scrutiny. But right now, this is why we are having such a more enjoyable time watching Vivek than we were watching DeSantis. Daniel says, nope, when the pregnancy becomes life-threatening to the mother, it is no longer considered an abortion. It is now a procedure. That's a good point. Yes, an abortion includes killing a baby. You can end a pregnancy without doing an abortion. Well said. Shout out to David Banner in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. So DeSantis is dead in the water. It's Trump or bust for the GOP. Probably, but hey, man, Vivek is doing a good job here. How's he going to do on the stage with Trump? I don't know, but I do think he's going to make it there. Welcome to the party, brother.
For Republican candidate for U.S. president. I don't even talk about Republicans that much anymore. I try not to use the word. Not because it's a bad word, but because it doesn't mean anything.
Facts.
Right? If half the Republican, 3/4 of the Republican Party's got the same policy as Biden on the most important policy matter of our time, and if much of the Democratic Party, or at least people on the south side of Chicago, believe in using the military on the southern border and putting the interests of Americans first, I'm not sure those labels are doing much for us now. And one of the things, I actually just got this stat yesterday from my campaign, 40% of the donors to our campaign are first-time ever donors to the Republican Party in any form ever.
And I will be, I don't know who exactly, but I likely will be a first-time Republican voter as well. Elizabeth said, at this point, though, he would still be my second pick. He's a decent pick, just a few things that are concerning. Sadly, 90% of the GOP is so low energy. That is very true. That is very true. And that is why Trump's presidency and Trump's campaign specifically changed the game so much that you can't be that boring guy anymore. If what we saw from DeSantis was in 2015 even, it probably would be fine. I mean, none of us would probably be into it, but that's what the GOP was. And now it's changing. It still is, as Elizabeth says, 90%. Well, so there's a long way to go. But between Trump and Vivek by themselves, we also have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Stein, all these people who are young and vibrant and ready to fight another generation, as opposed to the octogenarians that are in there who are not ready to fight for life. Their own. I'm not talking about abortion.
And the normal number is 2%. So I think this should actually give us hope for possibility. If we're willing to take the shackles off a little bit, relax a little bit on identity can be confining. Right? The left does this masterfully. You're black, therefore you can't achieve something. You're a woman, therefore you can't achieve something.
How dare you?
Identity's confining. You can be imprisoned in the identities that you inherit. And I just want to be careful that we learn from the left, or learn including what not to do, to be confined and imprisoned by our own identity of what it means to be Republican. Let's just let that word go and instead ask the question of what it actually means to be an American today. That's the question of our time. And you ask people my age that question, you get like a deer in the headlights response. It's like, it's a blank stare initially. But on the other side of that is then an introspection to say, okay, there are certain ideals that we fought a revolution for in this country. Self-governance over aristocracy, sovereignty as a nation, free speech, meritocracy. That you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and contributions. That's what it means to be an American. That's what we're running to. And honest to God, Tucker, I think that if we do this right, if we actually prioritize our vision, what we stand for, I think it's going to be a landslide election for I'm not going to say Republican candidate, a pro-American candidate in this race.
It's just, there you go, a pro-American candidate. And, obviously you're not going to find that in the left because they hate America. So that automatically, Oba says this is perfect. This is perfect because the left has given up on the idea of being American. They hate America. And so what he just said, if you're looking for somebody pro-America, let's go. I'm with that. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're white or black. I don't care if you're this, that. What I care about is that you put America, my country, and my countrymen, and me too, at the top of your list of priorities. If you can't do that, then you do not deserve my vote or anyone else's.
Because what you didn't mention, so I asked you, you've been traveling around the country. It sounds like you've really, I mean, you went to Kensington on the South Side. You've really kind of been to the span of the country. I watch media coverage, and everything's about race. And America is divided by race. That's America's original sin. It's the thing that cleaves us as a country. You didn't mention that. So why do they keep telling me that?
They blow what I call woke smoke to deflect accountability for their own failure, actually.
Bingo.
So
Yep.
what do you think affirmative action has done for black people in this country? Nothing. What do you think? It's been negative. It's created racism that otherwise would not have existed.
Yep.
I've seen it. I have hired black executives at companies I have founded on merit. I could care less for the skin color. And then behind closed doors, people say, well, that person got their job because of race, because they're jealous because they weren't good enough to get the job. But that is sad. It's unfair to everyone involved.
Yep.
They'll blow woke smoke. They'll say math is racist. When in fact, you know, what might be wrong is not teaching kids in the inner city for a year under COVID lockdowns how to do math. And then they're using this to cover up for that failure.
So this is all, those of you who watch all the time know exactly how this sentence is going to end. All he is pointing to, all he is describing is something that I describe all the time as one of the top two issues that have dismantled our ability to have political discussions. Whether I'm being dogmatic thinking, whether you believe in a God that can do no wrong, or you could believe that a man can transform into a female, don't stick to those ideas without some skepticism. Or number two, semantic obfuscation, using words in a way that they are not meant to be used, using words in a way to try to confuse people, using words in a way to try to win an argument even when you've lost, even when you don't have the better idea, but you just call something racist and now you win. That cannot be American. That cannot be part of our culture.
I personally think that's actually what's going on in the U.S. military, too. Right? People wonder about where's this wokeness in the military coming from. I mean, our military has been disastrous in defining its purpose, how we're actually using the resources of a military to fight wars that we haven't actually shown great value from in the last 25 years. So let's just talk about systemic racism and white rage instead. It's a deflection mechanism. Companies do it. The military does it. Schools do it. Teachers' unions do it. It's irrelevant.
And this is when we say that this is infected. The tentacles of wokeism have infected every single institution. It has reached every area where we now have to question, peer-reviewed medical science because there's wokeness injected into it. You can't trust anyone about anything anymore. And that's purposeful. They did that on purpose. If you think that was a mistake, you're not paying attention.
And in fact, what would they ever do without those poor black kids who they could hold out as the sacrificial lambs for their own failures?
Oh, you remember the Kelly Clarkson on the View? Well, if we stop immigration, who's going to clean all the toilets?
What's that?
You can't say stuff like that.
What we actually need to do is to level up and say, no. Regardless of the color of your skin, how are we going to be a country that ensures opportunity? Black, white, man, woman, doesn't matter. You know, my parents came to this country with almost no money. I've gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies.
I was going to say, shit, me too. But my parents came here with no money, and I'm just a YouTuber. But hey, we on our way.
And then people tell me, oh, that's because you had privilege. They tell me white privilege. It's sort of weird. It's sort of an interesting. It's kind of interesting.
Shout out to the soft num-noms. That's right. Welcome to the party. It was Kelly Osbourne, not Kelly Clarkson. Sorry, Kelly Clarkson. But yes, good call. Welcome to the party. Indeed, I will keep it up.
Do you tell him?
I
missed that.
They tell me billion-dollar companies. And then people tell me, oh, that's because you had privilege.
What?
They tell me white privilege. It's sort of weird. It's sort of an interesting. It's kind of interesting.
Do you tell him?
I take the blindfold off, and now you have your answer. But the interesting answer is, actually what I do tell him, Tucker, is that I did have privilege. I didn't grow up in money, but I had two parents in the house. a mother and a father with a focus on education and a faith in God. And you know what? That is the ultimate privilege.
If we replace faith in God with faith in values that actually support the American dream or whatever, I know that's a mouthful, but you get what I'm saying. No disagreements. That is the biggest privilege that you can have. Listen to it again. And just whether if you're an atheist, just replace God and faith with morals.
Funny. But I had two parents in the house,
a
mother and a father with a focus on education and a faith in God. And you know what?
A focus on education and a belief that we should treat each other a certain way. That's all you need.
That is the ultimate privilege. That if I'm going to enjoy that, every kid in this country ought to enjoy it too.
Absolutely. Ayush says, thank you, brother. I'm neither pro or anti-life. My line in the sand is ability to sense pain. Life is not discrete. Life is a continuous process. Only bodies are separated by space. Fair enough. I just the issue I have with any line in the sand that is not conception, and this is I used to be very pro-choice, not pro-abortion, but I used to be like, woman's body, whatever, and Roe v. Wade was good, first trimester, whatever. But then I started thinking about it. And whether you take consciousness, whether you take the ability to sense pain, whether you take the heartbeat, whether you take any of these things, they're all arbitrary. And so at the point of abortion, you never know whether or not that baby actually does or does not have the ability to sense pain. You could see the heartbeat, but certainly, if you talk about things like viability, or we talked about with Destiny, his line is human consciousness, which to me at least makes more sense, but is still arbitrary. How do you know if we say the ability to sense pain comes at 30 to 35 weeks, and you're at week 32? How do you know? How do you know? And if that's your line in the sand and you don't know, then you can't cross it. So I respect your opinion. I can't agree with it. But hey, we all have different opinions here, and that is what makes this place great. Opus said family, community, country. That's it. That's all we need. Focus on those things, and we will get better. Say, what about somebody who's been through a fire with nerve damage all across their body and basically no ability to sense pain? Are they still alive? Of course they are. Of course they are.
Do you think, I just have to ask you this, do you, because you're not a political professional, do you think Biden's going to be the nominee?
So it depends on who the Republican nominee is. I'm running because at this point, actually,
let's make that a poll before he goes on. Will Biden be the nominee? Let me know what you think in the poll, and replay gang, let me know what you think in the comments below. Will Joe Biden be the Democratic nominee for the 2024 election?
My heart says, I couldn't have told you this in February. I launched on your show, and honest to God, when I left, I had no idea how this thing was going to go. My gut instinct is that I will be the nominee and in a position to win this in a landslide versus Biden. And they will not let Biden run against me. So I believe that if I am the nominee, they will not let Biden run. It is why they're holding in the back pocket the documents case against Biden. It is why they're holding in the back pocket everything else that you're wondering why they're not charging or bringing now. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing.
So is he saying that they are, so what he's saying is, I think that people believe Biden can beat Trump, but Biden can't beat Vivek. Again, this is what he's saying. So they are waiting to see who the nominee is going to be. And if it is Vivek, again, this is what Vivek is saying. If it is Vivek, that they're going to drop all this stuff and throw Biden under the bus and go with somebody else because they don't think that Biden can beat Vivek. I think that is what he is, what he's saying. Elizabeth says, I don't think they are deciding the nominee based on Vivek. Yeah, I don't think so either. But hey, it's a good that's a good line. That's going to stick with you, right? But yeah, I agree. Daniel says the Democrat Party said they're not nominating anybody else. Do you believe it though? Do you believe it? was just said Trump is going to win nomination in a landslide. That would make things a lot easier for me. Because I've never voted for Trump. I never wanted to vote for Trump. I can absolutely 1000% see myself voting for Trump this time around. But depending on how the primaries go and depending on what the Libertarian Party does, I don't know. Most likely, Trump's going to be the nominee. Most likely, I'm going to vote for him. But again, as I say, he still has to earn that vote. He's not running on 2020. And if he was, he definitely wouldn't get a vote from me. So he needs a new platform and he needs to earn my vote. They all do. Anybody does. Free Ego says, unless they somehow discover the fountain of youth, there's no way Biden even retains cognitive function for another 4 years after this one. Adrenochrome can only work so well. Facts. Hey, shout out to Shishi7J. Welcome to the party. Said, I was listening to a song earlier today. Can't remember the name, but damn, it described how I'm feeling right now. It's a mega party or a MAGA party. Either way, welcome to the party. Welcome. Glad to see ya. Ayush says, evolution of lower elements into the nerve system. How is there even a question of sense of pain before the nerve system comes into existence? I've already said the life is already there at conception. Right, I agree. But if you're drawing a line in the sand, how do you know where that line is? You have to know whether or not the individual fetus that you're aborting can or cannot experience pain in order for that to be justifiable under your terms. So you would have to know that. You would have to know, is this developed? Can this baby feel pain? And then what? You're going to go all the way there and oh, well, too late. If you'd been here yesterday, but you just missed it. Again, I don't disagree with the logic. I'm just saying it is arbitrary. Daniel said the libertarians are going to shit the bed as they always do. I hope not. The Mises Caucus and Dave Smith and Angela McArdle, they just took over. And they hated everything the Libertarian Party has been doing. And they wanted to do a revolution of the party. But they haven't announced anybody yet. So you might be right.
It's a managerial class, deep state bureaucratic class versus elected official puppets thing. And so they're not going to have to use that if it's Trump because they think based on, they don't analyze, they analogize. They say we did it. We can debate that, but we appear to have done it. We appear to have done it, and so we'll do it again. So if it's Trump, they're going to run Biden. If it's me, there's no way they let Biden run. It's going to be a new puppet, Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama, you name it. It doesn't matter to me, though, because for me, whoever it is, I'm not running against anybody in this primary field, and I'm going to keep that philosophy in the general. I'm not running against whichever puppet they put up, Biden or somebody else.
I don't think that's a good, I think that is a noble mindset to have. But you definitely are running against Trump. There is no question that you have to look at Trump as somebody, as an opponent. Come on.
I'm running for our vision of what it means to be a citizen of this nation, the United States of America. I'm leading us to something, and nobody else is going to get in the way.
Thank you. Vivek, good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Tucker.
All right. So, okay.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
So here's what we'll do. I didn't realize that was just that. So I want to find the clips from, because I'm not sitting and listening to the entire thing with Mike Pence. But let's see what we got. So we have so before we go into that though, we can see a clear difference between how the candidates are managing themselves. So first we have Trump, who's being low key, which I think is a good move for him because right now there's all the legal stuff. So I think that is doing the campaigning for him. It's martyring him. So it's in getting the base ready to be like rah rah. DeSantis is just, I don't know what he's doing. Vivek is, he is swinging for the fences, and you got to respect it. I think he and you and me, we all know that he's not going to be the president. I think we all know that. But he's putting in a damn good try. And because he's making the race that he's raising the level of what is needed by a lot. So I definitely appreciate that. Elizabeth said, I don't know how it sounds really nice to hear, but it just, I don't know. It sounds really nice to hear, but it just comes off kind of fake to me. I don't know. He's very kumbaya. Yeah. And again, we're at the place where you want to say the things that sound nice. That's all we're doing at this point. And nobody's been able to do it except for Vivek. That doesn't mean he's going to be a great leader. That doesn't mean everybody's going to vote for him. That we're not there yet. But for tonight, especially as we go into these Pence clips, seems like Vivek is the winner. Frigo said, no, he's saying that anyone in the Democratic Party is not someone he's running against. He's saying that he's running against the entirety of. Oh, okay, good call. I missed that. Okay, yeah, he's not saying that he's not saying that anyone in the Democratic Party is not someone he's running against. He's saying that he's running against the entirety of controlled interests in Washington, which is both parties. Thank you. That went right over my head. All right, so let's see what we got. I think there's a bunch here.
Along the way,
Well, that's not what the hell? Videos?
the Biden administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this. We promised them 33 Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them.
Yeah, I think he would make a great vice president, Vivek, that is.
We've been telling them we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January we'll let somebody transfer some jets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You are distressed.
Thank you for noticing. That didn't sound a little, well, yeah, I am, actually. Is that just me?
Running for president. You are distressed.
No? Is that a little... Frigo says, Ukrainians are lucky that they receive anything, not gonna lie. Yeah. I mean, this is another thing where I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Because Tim Pool was talking about how, there's all these treaties and agreements and stuff that were made years and years and years ago before we were ever part of anything. And the reason that we're in Ukraine is because some of those agreements. But none of us here now today actually want to uphold those agreements. And so we're stuck in this position of, okay, do we have to, like if your dad promised my dad something and then they both die, do I owe that to you? Of course not. But the American government is still the American government. So if the American government is going to make promises and then 30 years later not follow up on those promises, well, that says a lot to other countries who have the promise of either protection from the U.S. or, going to be under fire from the U.S. if they do stuff like try to invade other countries. So very, it's a very tough one, and I really don't know where to fall on it. Ayush says the medical science can recognize how a nerve system functions, and we can take a buffer zone of a week to be entirely sure there is no causing the suffering. That's how I go about it. So you can be positively sure that 1 week before. So I'm just going to throw a number out there. I don't know what the range is. So let's say it's 30 to 35 weeks. I'm just for the sake of argument, and you say, okay, let's go back a week. So you're saying that if the nerve system starts functioning at 30 weeks, that there is no possibility that at 28 weeks and 6 days that a baby can feel pain? If you know that for sure, then sounds great. But I don't think that you can know that. Therefore, the only line that makes any sense is conception. Exceptions to that rule may exist. But I have not heard a better argument. Frigo said, the most I would have given Ukraine is a good luck, pal, and hope you don't get nuked. Yep, me and Daniel definitely agree.
That the Ukrainian...
All right, so let's get this full thing.
President, have you... I know you're running for president.
Thank you for noticing.
Thank you.
You
Thanks
are
for noticing.
distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And
I don't care.
it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased.
Yep.
And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern. I'm running for president of the United States because I think this country's in a lot of trouble.
Then why isn't it your concern to help it?
I think Joe.
Okay, I guess that's a clip. Mike said, no one from CNN would ever talk to Biden like that. Oh, yeah, we know that. That's for sure. I mean, and that goes back to what Vivek was saying about, not running against the Democrats or even the other Republicans, but that he's running against the entity that is the establishment. And I'm down for it. Let's see. We got a Charlie Kirk one here.
You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough. Rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder have exponentially increased, and yet your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars.
This one's shorter. All right, come on. Let's see. Anything different?
Been slow in providing. Along the way, the Biden administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this.
Nobody cares
promised
about
them 33
anything else.
Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them.
Nobody
We've been
cares
telling
about
them
anything.
we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January.
But this is the only part that people care about.
Sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You.
All right, let's see. Anything else worthwhile? We got from Colin Rugg here, co-owner of Trading Politics, says leaving Fox News was the best thing that ever happened to Tucker Carlson. He will enjoy life so much more now that the shackles are off. Look how much fun he's having. Let's see.
No, I won't attack anyone on personal grounds or by name. It's tempting. I will say it's tempting. Whoever said do it, you're the devil on my shoulder. Do it! I've spent my whole life.
I'm gonna come back to this.
No. But if I could make some general observations, which I think are more edifying than just like savaging Mike Pence, which I'm not going to do, because that would be wrong. And it would be wrong because it's too easy. And the easy things are not rewarding, are they? You don't feel good when you beat your 5-year-old in soccer or ping pong. Like what?
Tucker 24.
Anyone on personal grounds or by name, it's tempting. I will say it's tempting. Whoever said do it.
Yeah, it does definitely seem like he's having a lot more fun. So there was a thing here. Okay, so readers added context that people would want to know. I don't even know how to read these. Tweet is framing Pence as saying he is not concerned with the American cities failing. Pence said, "That is not my concern," in response to saying, "Your concern is that the Ukrainians don't have enough tanks." So that is the if you want to be generous, then that is what he was actually saying. But you can't have a clip of Tucker going on listing all down the line of problems in the country, and then the first words out of your mouth, "That's not my concern." You can't do that. You can't do that. He is dead in the water. That will it doesn't matter what his policies are. Dead in the water. So let's see. I didn't think we would be done with all this so quick. So let's check out my old governor, Christie. Is it this or this? Let's do both. Why not?
Today, I want to talk to a colleague, former governor of New Jersey, current Republican candidate for president, Chris Christie. Chris, thanks for coming in. Today, I want to talk about the broader race. But first, you weren't in Iowa. You weren't at the Tucker Carlson forum. But if you were being pressed on Ukraine like that, how would you have responded?
I would have said, you've always been wrong about this, Tucker, and you're still wrong. That, in fact, what's going on, George, is that this is a proxy war with China. The Chinese are funding the Russian war by buying Russian oil. They're coordinating with the Iranians to provide lethal weapons to the Russian army.
Okay.
And we could decide when to have this conflict. Right now, the Ukrainians are willing to fight this fight for themselves if they have our support to be able to win it.
All right. Real quick, I just want to ask you guys a question. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just because he was my governor. But the only thing I can think of when I look at his face is either the meme of him sitting on the beach chair when he closed the beach, or the fact that he licked Trump's asshole for 2 years and then got thrown to the side. Is that just me? Elizabeth said, Christie would sell our codes and military secrets for a $quarter pounder. Oh my God, savage. Savage. Yeah, I hate this guy just as, oh, don't even get me started.
If the Chinese watch us back away from Ukraine, as Tucker Carlson and others would advocate, believe me, the next move will be Taiwan.
He was getting standing ovations. You don't think that's a big sell in the Republican Party?
I don't. And I'll tell you, as I travel around, George, look, I'm not saying there's not some division in the party. There is. That's obvious. But I still absolutely believe, both from what I've seen in polling and what I'm experiencing anecdotally, that a majority of Republicans want us to be supporting Ukraine because those folks are fighting for their own freedom, their own liberty, and they're degrading the Russian army and sending a message to the Chinese. Those are
He's just trying to take a different angle. I hear what he's saying, and it's too vague. And so Oba's asking what the bridge thing is with Christie. So I don't remember. Let's get an actual video because I don't 100% remember why he closed the bridge out of this. But it was something political. Christie Bridgegate. There we go.
Now to the growing fallout for New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Tonight, new details about
this is from January 11th of 2014.
How much his aides knew about that massive traffic jam on the George Washington Bridge and the warning that the plot could put drivers at risk. ABC's Gio Benitez.
I'm gonna come back to your comment. Don't worry.
Tonight, new documents show officials loyal to Governor Chris Christie were warned on day one of the massive September traffic jam that it was possibly life-threatening, and that one of the key architects of the jam, Christie's Port Authority appointee, David Wildstein, went to the bridge himself to witness the standstill on the first day. Christie's aides had said the 4-day jam on the world's busiest bridge was part of a traffic study, but it appears it was political payback after Fort Lee, New Jersey's Democratic mayor would not support Christie's 2013 re-election.
That's right. It was some BS with another politician, and it was just a spite move. Yeah. Well, now I'm gonna make it super inconvenient for the entire state. A lot of people in New York, and people die because they're in ambulances. Who cares? Who cares? That is who Chris Christie really is. Oh, right. So going back to Ayush and I, where we were talking about abortion. So are you saying if I can be sure there's no nervous system, you'll be fine with abortion in that case? Let's put aside the capability of determining the existence of the nerve system for argument's sake. No, because I never said pain. I'm just poking a hole in your logic that pain is a good place. I believe that life begins at conception. So unless there is one of the exceptions, like life of the mother, then there is no reason. I'm not fine with abortion under any circumstances. But I'm saying you're saying that you would be fine under those circumstances, and that's fine. But you don't have those circumstances. That's the problem. So no, because that's not my line. That's your line. My line is life. My line is conception. And so I don't need mental well, let me not say that. I'm not saying you're doing mental gymnastics, but I don't need to explain away the circumstances if the line is drawn, the line is clear, and we know where the line is. Once unique DNA is created, that is a life. Now, some people, again, don't necessarily, I eat meat. I don't have value for every single life. I've stepped on an ant before. And this is where the argument of human consciousness comes in. And that's Destiny's position. And I, again, disagree, but it is a logical position. This is also a logical position. But the fact is, yeah. And so I mean, fair enough. I just disagree. So maybe life itself doesn't begin at conception, but the individual themselves begin at conception. That DNA is specifically what I'm referring to. So whatever words you want to put around it, unique DNA is created at the moment of conception. And so once that unique DNA is created, then that is what I believe should be protected like any other human. That is my position. Elizabeth said about Christie, he doesn't think he's a big sell for the Republican Party. He has looked at literally any polling. Has he looked at any polling or any crowd reactions during speeches anytime Ukraine funding is brought up? Apparently not. Apparently not. So she's a little bit behind, but that's okay. Said Vivek will be VP to Trump and then president for 2 years. Why would he be president for 2 years? It would make sense in the economies and in and better to be with another businessman. I do, when I originally, like when people were saying, oh, Trump's this amazing businessman, my response was, well, America's not a business. I don't want it run like a business. Turns out there's a lot of overlap in what I want, how I want the country to be run, and how I want a business to be run. So, yeah, I don't understand the 2 years part. I don't know where that's coming in, but definitely, I would be down for this, 100%. Daniel says, so what, it begins at the sperm, whose only drive is to fertile. So what if? Try this one again. I don't know what this says. Okay, we're done with this one.
58, Bridget Ann Kelly writing it.
March 13th. All right, one more here. Let's just see what he's got. Let's just see what he's got.
You take on the media, and I'm in the media, so I read that section carefully. But the book is called, it's about conspiracies and lies, and you really don't take on Fox News. Why not?
Well, because
the book was Tucker Carlson
because the book. No, I don't watch it, but the book.
Are you aware of what he does?
Not really. I don't pay a lot of attention to it.
It's a book with truth deniers, conspiracy theorists.
You are not familiar with what Tucker Carlson does. Okay, I believe that.
On the cover, and you attack CNN and the New York Times and MSNBC and not Fox.
But excuse me, I don't attack them as conspiracy theorists or truth deniers. I talk about bias.
And is bias more dangerous to the country than conspiracy theorists?
No, but that's the third section of the book.
I read
where I talk about the movement forward in the center portion of the book.
Bro, how are you getting wiped by a daytime host on MSNBC?
Book. We talk about the conspiracy theories and the truth denying that went on with things like QAnon, Pizzagate, the election situation, John Birch Society. And that's what I talk about. There's 2 sections of the book, and I'm sure accidentally you're conflating them.
I'm not conflating them, but I don't think I don't think it's an intellectually honest case to make against conspiracy theories without taking on Fox News.
Well, listen, then you can write that in your book.
Well, I'm not trying to rescue the Republican Party.
I understand. Well, whenever you want to write your
I guess my question is,
what are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about? Daniel says, should life begin at sperm, whose only drive is to fertilize an egg? The question is more for Ayush. So Ayush, that is to you. I personally would say no, of course, because that is the DNA of the father. But Ayush, what say you? Ovis says Christie is slime. Very much agreed. All right, let's finish this one up, and we'll find one more, and we'll head over to the after party, which is, if you have been enjoying this, guys, you will definitely find a home at the Indian Jesus Discord server, where the party never ever ends. That's right, 24/7. We are in there hanging out, having conversations, playing games, and after every single live stream, we go in there for an after panel where you're not stuck behind your keyboard, but you're actually on screen with me and everybody else. You can come up if you want to. You don't have to. Either way, it is a grand old time. Come and join us.
Run for president. What's your relationship with Fox News going to be?
Well, first of all, I didn't say I wanted to run for president. You said that. So let's be clear about
Well,
that.
a lot of
Okay, but you're now running for president.
people have said in the last 3 days you haven't corrected any of them.
Well, I understand that.
Quick to
No.
jump in and correct the record.
No, what I've said is that I certainly will think about it, but I won't make any decision for at least another year.
Do you think that
So when was this? This was November last year. Okay.
Fox News in prime time is good for the country or bad?
Listen, there are shows that I like in Fox News, and there's shows that I don't like. Like there are shows that I
Are
like
you
here,
afraid to
and I don't
question
like.
the purveyors
Yes, he is.
of conspiracy theories and
By the way,
lies?
but that's your opinion. You're welcome to your opinion, like everybody else in this country is welcome to your opinion. I don't consider people like Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham purveyors.
I didn't say either of their names.
Well,
Tucker Carlson.
you said the evening news programs at Fox
The
News.
8 p.m. hour.
And as I told you, I don't watch the show, so I don't know what Tucker does from night to night.
Stop the cap.
If I watch anything at night in news, because most of the time I'm watching sports, but if I'm watching anything in news,
Glad you're paying attention. Yeah, I want to vote for the guy who really knows all the stats about what's going on in this Super Bowl. Never mind what's going on in the world or even our own backyard, the country. Make sure you know what's going on with the Jets.
I'm usually watching either Sean or Laura.
So you may or may not support Donald Trump in 2024. You
No.
may or may not run for president.
I just want to bask in that for a moment. So, I mean, as we're seeing already, there is so much difference in the candidates themselves and the way that they are presenting themselves. And that's a big thing because at the end of the day, their policies are not going to be hugely different. They're definitely going to be different, but we're going to get a Republican president if they, whoever the nominee is, if they win, it's a Republican president. And certainly not going to be Christie, who, will just say whatever. It's embarrassing. But it really does seem like a lot of people are starting to take Vivek a lot more seriously. And so as of watching those videos with DeSantis and with Vivek being interviewed by Tucker, I am firmly right now in the Vivek camp, understanding that he is probably not going to be the nominee and that Trump is probably going to be the nominee. And if that is the case, I will most likely vote for Trump. But as of right now, I think it would be better for the country. It would be better for the country if we do not have a president where half of our country, their brains explode when they see his face or hear his name. That's just my opinion. So I want to thank you guys so much. Oh, well, hold on. We got an answer here. Give me a second. Finish off. Ayush gets the last word. Says life is not the beginning in sperm. Life continues. Evolution of lower elements into self-assembling blocks. The sperm is living in that respect. So you're right in saying the sperm is alive just like you. That wasn't the question. Or was it? So the original question, yeah. So because he has this this concept of life that is not what we would consider, a person is born and died, and thinks of it in a different context, then what you would need to ask specifically if he's already said that life is continuous. So what you want to be asking is, should we have the same protections for sperm that we do for a fetus that can sense pain? That would be the question that we're asking. So yeah, this is my red line. And Ayush, I would love if you could join us in the Discord. Sounds like you've got a lot of interesting opinions and a lot of ways to challenge the opinions that we have. So the link is there. Let me pin it to the top. It is free to join. And like I said, we're hanging out all the time. Plus, after every stream, like right now, we're about to go over there for a after panel discussion where we don't have to worry about YouTube and the censors and all that stuff. Unfettered conversation. I very, very, very much hope to see you over there. But once again, I got to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I would love, especially from the Repay gang, let me know what you thought in the comments below. What do you think of DeSantis? What do you think of Vivek? Do you care about Christie? Either way, let me know. Thank you. If you see a different thumbnail here, that's because I changed it in the middle. We were originally just going to be talking about DeSantis, but I switched it up. pulled an audible for you guys, and we got some Vivek. But thank you again. I really do appreciate you every single second you spend here with me. I know you could be doing anything else. And Morty is shivering in fear at what I don't know, but he very much appreciates you guys too. Until next time, guys, thank you so much. I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here. Peace.